Hey, welcome to a new episode of Skin in the Game. I'm your host, John Simperman, with my co-host.
I'm Tim O'Shea. John, good to see you. And
great to see you.
Today we are digging into a great interview, one of my favorites that we did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we have Katy Knoll actually going to be in studio. She plays for the Minnesota Frost.
Yes, in the Professional Women's Hockey League. And, the PWHL, John, is something that our regular Skin in the Game audience knows. We've discussed quite a bit this year in women's sports and particularly what they are doing to elevate the game of hockey and give young women out there who are playing youth hockey, an NHL type experience to aspire for. Yeah. That's Katy Knoll. Katy Knoll is a 24-year-old forward for the Minnesota Frost, the Walter Cup champions. That's the equivalent of the Stanley Cup champions in the PWHL. And she was one of those young women who grew up dreaming of doing what she's doing now. And if she was even just a little bit older, it would have been harder to have that dream and see it fulfilled this way.
Yeah, well, we've talked a lot about the growth of women's sport here on Skin in the Game, and it'll be great to get the insight and the perspective from someone who is actually playing the game and helping grow the sport. And just for our listeners, real quick, you mentioned the Professional Women's Hockey League. This is going to be year 3. They hit the ice for year 3 in November, adding 2 new teams, Vancouver and Seattle joined the league. So now there will be 8 teams in the league. And, just for reference, there has been growth. The first year of operations, they averaged about 5,000 a game. Last year, they were up to 7,500 per game. And that's a nice number. That's a really sustainable number. That's good energy in the building. So there's
with great sponsorship interest, I want to say too. You see who their sponsors are, and we'll get into this a little later on. This is a league that has a real opportunity to grow. Yeah,
it sure does, and there's a lot of growth around women's sport. It's great to see the sport of hockey also getting its due. I thought also of news recently was the World Cup of women's rugby. Speaking of women's sport, they had an absolute banner tournament in England over the last few weeks. To our listeners in Canada, congratulations to your women. They were in the finals against England, but it was Canada versus England, and they filled up the stadiums. Over 80,000 were in attendance for the women's final. So that sport has really got potential as well.
It does. And not only as a viewership, sport, but also participation. I don't know about you. I know a lot of young women who play rugby now. And it's, and I'm saying this from their point of view. As you can tell, if you can see me right now, if you're watching us on video, I'm not a rugby player. Never was. Probably that's a good thing. But it's an incredible sport, and it's good to see basketball, hockey, professional softball, soccer and rugby being played at a world-class level with world-class audiences and sponsorships.
Yeah, eventually, it's beyond me, and Tim, I did play rugby, which may explain a few things about me.
One of the differences between you and me.
But I'm still stumped at why the sport hasn't taken off here in the States. It has, the physicality of football, the skill of soccer, and unlike the American game of football, there's not 35 seconds between each play. So, there have been and there is, a couple of leagues, Major League Rugby. There's a kind of a barnstorming league that's traveling. I do think both men and women's rugby do have upside. They just got to get the right markets and the right ownership. But it's a great sport to experience both live, because there are no stops in play, as well as on television.
And John, do you think is there enough capacity in the sports marketplace to actually do that at a professional level? And
absolutely, absolutely. I think it just has to be marketed. I joke. I went to a party and a rugby game showed up, right? Because you got to create this festive atmosphere, and then if you get people to get to the game, maybe because of the party, wow, it's a great sport. So great for the women's game. They do come back. The Women's World Cup of rugby comes in the United States in 2033. Men's World Cup of rugby is coming here to the States in 2031. So hopefully more exposure, more participation, both on the men and women's side. That sport can really gain some traction here in the U.S.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to switch gears, and the word raucous comes to mind here to talk about a different sporting event that turned raucous, but unlike a rugby game, not in a good way. Did you check out the Ryder Cup?
I did.
All right.
I did.
Fill everyone in on what you saw and what your reaction was.
Well, going to a golf event, shouldn't be like going to a rugby game or to an NFL game for that matter. There's decorum, both among the fans as well as interaction with the players. And I was, let me just put it nicely, very disappointed in the way the fans interacted with the players. For those listeners who aren't familiar with what happened at the Ryder Cup, vulgarities, heckling of the European players, really focused on Rory most notably. And, it was just really disappointing that the fans behaved so poorly. And something, it was in Long Island. New Yorkers, New York City New Yorkers, can tend to be a little bit more boisterous maybe than fans in other parts of the U.S. But I just thought it was a bad look for us. Right now, there's enough bad PR, coming out of Washington among, U.S. and, tourism and travel and everything else. I just didn't think the fans in New York at this event needed to kind of throw gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, it's a viral moment that you absolutely don't need and don't want. Now, I'm going to ask you this knowing that, fans are responsible for their own behavior, but what can the event organizers in a situation like this do to either cut down or prevent that type of thing from happening?
Well, I know they did add more security, they did add more police, but I think at that point it was too late, right? And I'm not sure of what tactically they did do, but hopefully they did this. Big signs on Friday morning at the event saying, if you do any of these things, which include vulgarities, you're going to be removed from the event. Put up signs at the entrances. The other thing is they have the name and the email of every fan who bought tickets to that event. I would have sent out an email the morning of Friday and said, by the way, we've heard of these incidents, and going forward, here is the code of conduct for the Ryder Cup at Bethpage. And if, by the way, if you break any of these rules, you're going to be removed from the premises. The message should have been, root for the USA, root for our guys, don't heckle the other team. Show some class.
Yeah. And, we talk a lot on this program about how sports integrates into all parts of society, and it also reflects society. And sadly, it's a bad reflection on where we're at. It's not a blanket statement, but it's a reflection of what the dialogue is looking like out there. So hopefully, hopefully you and I don't continue, having this postmortem kind of conversation.
Right.
Let's lighten it up. We're going to, and I'll tell you, everybody stay tuned for this, because our interview with Katy Knoll, again, who's a current forward, she's a 24-year-old forward for the Walter Cup champion Minnesota Frost. Incredible window into where women's professional hockey is, where it's headed, and we couldn't be more excited to bring her to you. So stick around. Next up is Katy Knoll.
Listen to BTPM NPR wherever you are on the BTPM Listen app. Find it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.
She said this, well, he said that. The truth will come out.
Wondering what the buzz is? What's the hot goss? Whatever it is, we're talking about it on Group Chat, your weekly connection to the unpredictable, weird, and wonderful world of pop culture, from film, theater to food, blockbusters, and beyond. Every week with Tiffany Bentley and her revolving panel of pop culture enthusiasts. Listen to Group Chat on Fridays at 10 a.m. and Saturdays at noon on BTPM NPR.
I'm very excited.
Welcome back to Skin in the Game, and Katy Knoll, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. Congratulations on the Walter Cup.
Thank you.
You were in town a couple of weeks ago here in the Buffalo area, bringing the Walter Cup to, let me see, the Sabres, the Bills, Niagara Falls.
Yep.
Riverworks in downtown Buffalo.
Yep.
Talk us through that. What was that day like?
Yeah, it was super exciting. I was really excited when I finally got my dates with the Cup, and funny enough, it was actually on the weekend of my sister's wedding. So it was a huge celebration weekend and everything. So the Saturday, my sister got married, and then Sunday and Monday were my official days with the Cup. So I made sure to have a big family party and kind of include all the people that were in town for my sister's wedding. And then Monday was really about hitting all the stops. I stopped at the Falls, took a bunch of cool pictures there, and then swung by the Bills Stadium, had a really cool tour out there, and ended the night at Riverworks for my signing.
That's awesome. So, I mean, when you win the Stanley Cup, people have heard the stories, over the decades of, there's certain rules. You can only hold it over your head if you won it. If you won it, right?
Yeah.
People will drink and eat out of it. So, are there any rules with the Walter Cup? And did you turn it into tableware at some point?
There's definitely some. Yeah, obviously, there's a list of guidelines you get when the case shows up on your doorstep. But no, it was just really special to be able to share it with my family and have them see it and hold it and do all of that. So just really grateful that I was able to kind of share it with my people in Buffalo.
Great. Well, that's great. Katy, thanks for joining us. For our listeners, give us just a little bit of background on your hockey, your hockey journey.
Yeah, I started playing when I was 2 years old, and a lot of people say that's really young, but I have two older siblings. My sister's about 6 years older, and my brother's 8 years older than me, and they were playing hockey since I was born. And when it got to the point I was putting on their smelly equipment and walking around the house in it, my parents were like, all right, let's get her in her own skates and let's get her on the ice. So I think, funny enough, I was actually still wearing diapers when I was playing. So I think that's really funny. I don't remember it, but super young I started, but I've loved it ever since, and I kind of took off and played locally for most of my youth hockey career. I played out at the hockey outlet with the Wheatfield Blades, boys hockey, until I was in grade 9. And then I kind of switched over to the girls' side for recruiting purposes and played for the Bisons, the Regals, and the Niagara Purple Eagles throughout that time.
So talk about the experience growing up as a young woman playing hockey. And you already answered one question that I was going to ask you, which is, when did you play co-ed? Yes. And when did you switch over to all girls hockey? But I'm wondering, in terms of access to facilities, coaching, good travel opportunities, everything that helps a young athlete, especially in the sport of hockey, grow exponentially. Did you get what you were looking for?
Yeah, I think when I was that young, I was honestly just looking for a place to play, and I didn't really know all of the possibilities and the opportunities that would kind of lie ahead. When I played boys hockey, I was really fortunate enough to have great coaches throughout my whole career, boys and girls, but loved my time out at Wheatfield. It was AAA boys. I think it really kind of shaped who I am as a player. Really, I think defines my game, and I like to play a gritty game, and I think that helped me a lot, having to prove myself with the boys, but once I switched over to girls, like I said, it was mostly for recruiting purposes. And back then they didn't have the rule about recruiting, so they could start recruiting you whenever people were committing in 8th grade. So it was a tough choice, but it was kind of the right time. The boys started catching up to me in height and weight and all of that. So I figured it was the right time to switch over. And then after my 9th grade year, I was only playing girls for 1 year, and I ended up committing to Northeastern.
Katy, I want to ask you about a couple of differences between, women playing the sport of hockey and men playing the sport of hockey, just as it relates to like rules and equipment. Mm-hmm. The big one that I'm wondering is about the difference when you're a youth hockey player in the checking rules.
Yeah.
So boys, I think you can tell me, I think around 11 or 12. Ish, somewhere in there can start checking.
I don't know the current rules, but when I was playing, it was, I want to say, Bantam Minor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's still the case.
Yeah, so I think I played 1 year of Bantam Minor, and then that's when I switched over. And then when I was playing girls hockey, there was no checking, really. I mean, there's body contact, obviously, but full-out checking wasn't allowed. But that's actually one of the best parts, I think, about the PWHL is that they do allow checking. And to some degree, there's obviously still illegal body checking and all of that you can get called for, but I love the fact that we're allowed to check.
Yeah, okay, tell us more tell us more. That's where I was going with this. So
yeah, especially coming out of college when even throughout my 5 years at Northeastern, it I often got penalties, I feel like, for being bigger and stronger, and it kind of made me mad. So that was one of the really exciting things about the PWHL was that they were allowing checking, and I love it. And in the role that I was in last year with Minnesota, I really utilized that, and I'm looking forward to keep doing it.
Now, take us through I want to hear about the championship series.
I do.
We're going to bounce time.
Yeah.
We're probably going to go back to your youth, Katy, and you're a car racer. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into a lot. But before we go too much further, you had a hell of a playoff series, and in particularly a hell of a championship series. In triple overtime in Game 3 of the Walter Cup Championship, you scored the game-winning goal.
Yeah.
You had 5 points, 2 goals, and 3 assists over the course of 8 games in the playoffs.
Yes.
So, yeah, just take our listeners through the PWHL playoffs. What was it like for you?
It was super exciting. It was, I would say by the end of the regular season, I was starting to kind of get some regular minutes and stay consistent with the line I was with, which was really exciting. And the first series in Toronto was obviously awesome because Toronto's so close to home. So it meant I also got to see some of my family, which was really cool. And our line was just clicking the whole playoffs. It was so fun to play with them. It just seemed like we were on a roll and no one was going to be able to stop us. And I think it was Game 2, we finally got on the board, or I finally got on the board. And, you know, when you score in that big of a game, it kind of just gives you like that confidence boost. And I kind of just kept it rolling from there. And our whole line, like I said, we were clicking really well. And by the time we got to the championship series, we kind of felt unstoppable. And it was so great because the whole team really rides off that energy, if you know what I mean. It's when all 4 lines are going and you don't just have to rely on line 1, line 2. It can be so energizing for a team. So we had to go to Ottawa and play it in their building, and that's a rowdy crowd to say the least. So I think we didn't win Game 1. It was overtime loss, but we came back and won in overtime in Game 2. Funny enough, all 4 games were 2-1 overtime games, which was absolutely crazy. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. But yeah, the crowd in Ottawa was crazy, but we were just super excited to get home for Games 3 and 4. And then, of course, Game 3 goes to triple overtime, and it was probably one of the cooler memories of my life, aside from even scoring the goal, just the game in general, like the amount of fans we had there, and everybody was so into it. And you never know which way it was going to go, and you just needed one bounce, and it happened to be me in front of the net. So that was super exciting. And then to win it at home in Game 4 and to even be out there when we won it, and our line to kind of seal the deal for our team was super exciting.
You had a mid-season game in Toronto. It was Minnesota versus Toronto in Toronto, and I was there. You and I didn't meet. I think you weren't even on the ice that night, but I was there. And here is my point. Watching, I told John about this too, and you'll remember this. That game that night, I don't even remember who won, but seeing the fan. The way the players and the fans interacted, and not necessarily direct interaction, but just you could tell the players were revved up, Toronto in this case, by the fans. When a goal was scored, the way the fans reacted in that building that I think holds like 6,000 or 8,000 people, and it was pretty full.
Yep.
That was one of the coolest hockey experiences I've had in a long time, and it's not just because I'm sitting in Buffalo where the Sabres haven't seen that in a while. It's, the PWHL really, really seems to have something special going. And I'm wondering, you would know that better than anybody.
Yeah.
What is it like to be playing in this league right now?
It's so exciting, and it's really great. I think that you can go into kind of anyone's barn and feel that energy and feel that environment. It's really awesome. And Toronto always has a great crowd. And like I said, it's one of my favorite places to play other than Minnesota, just because of the proximity to home. So I always get to see some family there. But even in like warm-ups, the way that we interact with fans, like I think the NHL is a bit different. They have their routines. Like you still see them throwing pucks over the boards and all of that. But the way that we interact with fans, like fans will bring signs for the away team. They'll want pictures. They'll do trades and stuff. And yeah, that happens in NHL, but I think it's kind of just on a next level in the PWHL. And it's so cool to interact with the fans. And Toronto specifically, when I go up to see my family after the game, there's an area where fans can kind of stay, which is super exciting. When I was playing, I got to meet a bunch of little fans who were just so excited to meet players.
Boys and girls, I assume. Right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. So it's really cool to have those moments, and it kind of puts everything into perspective that this is my job. This is what I do. I'm a professional hockey player and people look up to me. And I don't know if I'll ever get used to it, but it's just so cool.
Yeah. So just for background from our listeners, the Professional Women's Hockey League, is this 2 years old? I mean, there's been a couple evolutions of women leagues, but this league has now, I believe, 6 teams, and there's looking at expansion. I'm going back into my memories, Tim, because a few months back we had Amy Shear on the program.
And for our listeners, Amy Shear is one of the top executives in the league, and personal note, one of my favorite interviews we've had on this program.
Yeah, and it was great with, just like you, Katy, the enthusiasm that she has for the league and how they're really expanding the fan base for hockey, and whether it's a young girl or a young boy, just helping kind of provide something aspirational, and again, just making the game approachable and in a really family affordable environment, which I think is another benefit for your league.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So you talked a little bit about Toronto, and it sounds, Tim, you've been up there. There's a great vibe up there. And I like how you use the word barns. How are the other barns doing? How are the other environments, venues, teams doing from what you see, again, from the ice?
Yeah. I think it's a super exciting time. Each team has their own unique name that they call their fans, and everyone's really buying into it. Boston, even though they're still a little bit outside the city now, they still draw really good crowds out to Lowell, which is super exciting. And obviously, I'm a bit more familiar with Boston just because I went to college there for 5 years. So it's always exciting to go back there and see some people come out to games. So New York is right outside of the city. They play in the Devils Arena. So that's always cool to play in an NHL arena. We do in Minnesota, and I love it.
So you're in the XL Center.
We are.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually getting renamed, funny enough. But and there's 2 more teams getting added to the league this year in Seattle and Vancouver. So I'll get to visit 2 new barns, and I'm really excited about that.
Well,
and
this is going to be a nice segue, Tim, to one of your questions, because that's going to require a little bit more travel.
Oh yeah. So really excited to visit 2 new cities that I haven't been to, and I know that their fans are super excited. So
yeah, well, from what I read, there's also really strong affiliation with the Kraken.
Yep.
In Seattle, and they do a phenomenal job marketing game presentation. So I think that the PWHL team in that building is going to be a great addition to the league.
So, Katy, I'm going to shape this question personally, not for me, but for a close friend and coworker who is actually same age as you and grew up playing against you, in the sense that in the locker room before the game, the coach would say, "Watch out for Knoll." That's how she knew your name. She knew your name because you had the reputation to be the person to watch out for. But I was picking her brain, and I said, what would you want to ask Katy? But also, as you look at the PWHL, what are you thinking? And she said, well, number one, when I was growing up playing, I wish it existed, because it would have given me, as John said, something to aspire for, something to shoot for. And so I'm going to have a series of questions for you here, but one that I want to ask you about is, you graduated college and more or less, I give or take a year here, right about the right time to enter this league. In fact, exactly at the right time to enter this league. You graduated, you were drafted, right?
Yep.
Into the PWHL. Do you... Just, timing can be maybe not everything, but it can be a big piece of things.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So just as you look back at that, the generation you are and where, you're 24 and you graduated a year ago, the PWHL started. Do you feel fortunate, like you're hitting this at the right time?
For sure. Even in college, I would always say that one of the best things to happen from COVID was that I got an extra year. Because if I wouldn't have done 5 years, then I would have graduated and then kind of had that uncertain area where all the other girls at the time, the league kind of, for lack of a better term, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere, but it was kind of almost a last minute for everyone who wasn't involved, that it was like, oh, this is going to be the first year of the league. They had a draft, I believe it was in September before the first year. And for the bunch of that summer, I think a lot of the players were really unsure of what they were going to do. Some had graduated in April and they had no idea what was next. They had heard rumblings about a league, but they didn't really know for sure. So I was fortunate enough to kind of, okay, I have my 5th year. I can train this summer like normal. I can come back to school in the fall and do that. And I have a lot of friends who graduated and played in the league in the first year, and I kind of got to hear from them and pick their brains about how the league was doing in the first year. And I think I graduated at the perfect time. The league was a year old, kind of you got some time to work out the kinks and all of that. And to come in the second year, I think it was perfect timing. So like I said, it's one of the best things to come out of COVID was that I got an extra year of eligibility and I was able to get my master's. So once I'm done playing, whenever that is, I have a really great degree to fall back on as well.
And I want to, what's the degree?
Pardon?
What is your degree?
I got my master's in accounting.
Accounting. Oh, well, yeah, you could be you could be recruited in two fields right now, hockey and accounting. That's a great degree. So going back to the timing here too, I interviewed another PWHL athlete who's 28, 29, 30, somewhere in there in her late 20s. And she's a reserve player. And she said, I love that we have this league. And she had bounced around between teams that, some of which took the ice, some of which never quite got on the ice 4 or 5 years ago. And she said, I'm paraphrasing this, I feel so good for the athletes who are coming into this league right about now because they are hitting it at the right time to actually grow with that. So,
for sure.
What is John previewed a question we had about travel. We're wondering what is the day-to-day experience like? I mean, you are in the big leagues of hockey for, in terms of what is available to women. There's a PWHL and there's the Olympics, right?
Yep.
So you are in the big leagues, and we're just wondering, just in terms of how you get around and, in terms of like being able to build a career that allows you to really focus on hockey and not have to work too many other jobs, right?
Yeah.
To invest and set yourself up
exactly.
for life. Where are things at right now, and where do you think they're headed?
Yeah. Personally, I'll be super honest. I think I struggled a bit coming out of college, and going into the professional hockey kind of world. It was really eye-opening. I don't want to say I had a bunch of free time, but I was always so used to doing school, and hockey was your job, but so was school at the time. So going into professional hockey, it was your job is to be the best you can physically, mentally, and all of that. And when you're not, it really shows on the ice. So being able to kind of use that quote unquote free time that you think you have, you really need all of it to focus on bettering yourself and making sure that you're in a good spot so that you can be productive and be efficient and be the best version of yourself when you get to the rink. And in terms of where we're at and travel and everything, it's really professional in my opinion. It's pretty similar to any other professional league. We go in, we do our practice, we do our lifts, we have meals provided for us. It's really great. And I think in Minnesota, I can't speak to the other markets just because I haven't been there, but really love the setup we have there. We're at the same practice facility as the Wild are, and we have our own space. It's completely separate and everything, but there's still some crossover. So it's always kind of cool to see those guys and interact with them when we can. And travel days, we fly to all of our away games. There's no market that we drive to according to the CBA and the league stuff. So the flights and everything, it's always cool to see fans in the airport and all of that. And I love that. Some people are like, you guys don't fly private. And I'm like, well, no, but I think eventually we will when it gets there and the league's kind of a bit bigger. But I think that's so cool that we kind of get to bop around the airport and people see us and they're kind of scared to approach us. But then some people do and they want pictures. And that's honestly what it's all about. The league is still so new. And like I said before, we're role models for kids and even for adults who, like you mentioned, didn't get a chance to play professional hockey because it wasn't a possibility 5-10 years ago. Even when I started college, this league didn't exist. And I thought, okay, 4 years and then I'll be done if I don't make national team. So it's really exciting to be able to interact with people, even on our travel day, something as simple as that. But in terms of what we're providing and everything, super professional. It's kind of you go there, you handle what you need to handle, you make sure you're doing your best, and then go to practice, put your best effort in, and then go home and recover to do it again the next day.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, as far as, we've talked, Tim, a lot here about WNBA and now the Athletes Unlimited softball, which is more of that barnstorming league. Is this a full-time career? Because you've talked just in the last couple of years, the NBA, no pun intended, has taken leaps and bounds when it comes to things like player salary and travel. Where is this league at now? And can you make a career out of this full-time?
Yeah, I think you can. And coming from someone who was a lower end draft pick and not even on the highest salary contract by any means, it's I kind of had to learn about a lot about investing and all of that.
Well,
and
the accounting degree comes in handy.
Between that and props to my dad, he helps me kind of figure out some stuff when it comes to investing. So investing my money smartly was huge for me, but also just kind of living within my means. It's very livable. Obviously, there's a wide variety of contracts in the league, and there's players making over $120,000, the top players in the league. So it's great to see how far it's grown, even just in the first 2 years of the league. And I have no doubt that as the league kind of keeps growing and as talented players come in and stay in the league and all of that, and the game continues to grow,
right,
that people will be getting paid more.
Right. And then I think a big part of that too is, television deals and sponsorship deals. There's so many other potential revenue inputs to help grow that pie, hopefully for everyone.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, and John, have you been to a PWHL game yet?
I have not.
You and I have.
Get
So
you there.
yeah. So when Katie's in Toronto, well, I know you pick the city, but when Katie's in Toronto, we'll drive. Or
I actually love Minnesota too, so that would be.
I would love to go to
Yeah.
Minnesota. But John ran marketing for a handful of big league sports teams, and he ran his own national sports marketing firm for over a decade. So I want to get John's analysis on the incredible marketing that the PWHL is doing, because that was this is the nerdy side of me, the the businessy side. I was sitting in that arena in Toronto, and also when the PWHL came to KeyBank Center in Buffalo. And you just look at the array of sponsors. I mean, one that jumps out is Mattel and Barbie, but just a number of sponsors and the types of sponsors this league is able to draw in that you just don't typically see in other sports, too much at least. That was really striking to me too, and I mean, it spoke to the fans. I've got to think. I don't know as a player if you're really paying attention to what's on the boards or not. Probably you're not supposed to. But it looks like this league has is at the front stages of what is going to turn into a really great business, along with being a great, hopefully, playing experience and fan experience.
Yeah, and again, from a marketing perspective, Tim, I would agree. I think this is really similar to conversations like the ECHL that we've had. We've talked a lot about, some of the more family-friendly, affordable options, and then not only that, but then you're watching professionals at the highest level of their game. So I think there's tons of upside. I do think, though, you've got to find the right markets with the right barns. What I mean by, and it's great that you can play in what's formerly known as the XL Center, but looking at those 8,000 to 10,000 seat buildings, I'll cut to the chase here. We talked to Amy about, hey, what about Western New York?
Yeah.
Well,
we want a team here.
We don't have a building for it. We really need to find that 8,000 to 10,000 seat building that we can pack and have that energy. Yeah. So, but I think there's plenty of growth and plenty of upside for the league.
I think that's why you also see the Canadian markets. Their games are just so rowdy. All three teams, now there's four, but Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. I think Montreal may have the biggest one, and that's right around a little over 10,000, I think. And their games are, for lack of a better term, they're like a rave, I think. It's they have so much fun. I actually was not playing in one of the games, and I got to kind of experience it from a fan side, and they just had a blast, and it was so fun to be there, and I wasn't even on like the home team. It was really cool to watch it from a fan perspective, but also to play in that arena. It was really cool. They're in their AHL arena up in Laval up there, and the Ottawa team is out of the 67s arena.
Perfect.
That place is that's a really fun rink to play in, and it's weird because I got used to playing in NHL arenas or AHL arenas where they have the glass that kind of gives, but the 67s arena, it's old school. So it's like the glass that you hit it and it hurts, which is fun. Like I like hitting.
Say, you like hockey is on the rough side.
You get a little stinger of a hit every once in a while, but if you can use it to your advantage, I think that can be such an advantage for a home team.
It also makes such a better sound.
Yeah, it does. It really does. True. I remember the first game I played there, I do this thing in warm-ups where I kind of always like bump the glass just see how it feels, and I was not expecting it to hurt, and I I hit it a bit too hard in warm-ups. I was like, oh, okay, good to know. Glad I do this. So
yeah, better to do it by choice.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
I do want to ask you though, at home in Minnesota playing in an NHL size arena, so I assume around 18 or 20,000 seat venue. When you're in New Jersey playing in the Devils arena, how as a player how does that experience vary, and especially in terms of like what you're taking from the fan energy, as opposed to when you're in one of those smaller arenas?
Yeah, I think obviously depending on the day you're playing, the time you're playing, if you're playing a midweek game at 6:00 in a snowstorm, which we had one of those, and it was tough. I think we only had 4,000 or 5,000 people show up, which is still a great turnout.
If you got that in a snowstorm,
which it was.
Awesome.
We were surprised there was that many people there, but in an NHL arena, it can feel small.
That's
so
small.
I do love playing in the NHL arenas, especially our home arena. It's really nice, just from the game day graphics to having access to an NHL arena and the facilities that they have there.
The ice is probably pretty good too.
Yeah. So and it was really cool in the playoffs. Like, unfortunately, the Wild were out already, so they put all of our stuff on the ice, like our logo and everything, which was really cool. But it can at times feel like you want more people there. There's still a really great turnout, and if 5,000 or 6,000 people showed up in Toronto in that barn, it still feels full. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
are they cordoning off the upper deck? Are they trying, in Minnesota where they?
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The upper bowl, people don't sit up there, so it's mostly lower bowl, and in the playoffs, the second level as well, and also some suites depending. So, really cool arena to play in. I even talking to some NHL players, it can be a hard arena to play in, but it's one of their favorites. So, really cool that we get that as a home arena, I think.
Part of what gets athletes and teams and leagues attention is media attention, right? And so I want to ask you about 1 year in, but championship team, what that experience has been like for you, you and your teammates. I mean, just as you look around, have you seen a lot of interest on on the part of the media? I'm sure there's room to grow, but I can tell you as a reader, as a viewer, I feel like I see Google. People will see it. There's all kinds of coverage. But yeah, what's it like being on the other side of those microphones?
Yeah, I think it's really cool how much coverage there is of the league and of the teams. And I think in each market, there's a plethora of reporters that are, if they're not going to games, they're showing up to practice and even doing post-practice interviews, which I think is really cool. And it's what the league needs, honestly. If they want to continue to grow and be a professional league, that's how you get the word out there, is through all these media outlets. And to kind of be on the other side, it's really cool. I did a couple post-game press conferences in the playoffs, and really cool. And it was kind of, I didn't really know what to expect. You have a couple in college, but it's not the same by any means when you have the couple rows of seats and the reporters behind you and everything. But it's just like any other interview. It's like sitting here kind of talking with you guys. So you just kind of say what's on your mind and make sure you don't overstep, kind of. But after a game, the adrenaline's still running. So you normally are just kind of talking about the game and what you remember and all of that. But really cool experience to see just how many reporters are there, how many people are interested, and then to see the stuff put out after the games from the league to reporters to anyone. It's really cool.
So I guess that I'm not going to do a Tim O'Shea. I've got a two-part question. So one is, what tools, media-wise, is the league providing you, right, as far as coaching and media training? And then two, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're doing to maybe build your personal brand.
Yeah.
So give me the league tools first.
Yeah. So in preseason, there's a big seminar conference. I don't really know. It's one of those, and we have media training throughout preseason where the league kind of comes in and teaches, for those that don't know, just proper things to say, how to kind of interact, when you should kind of reach out to your staff or even your agent or something along those lines. So I think it's really great that the league kind of provides that, because someone coming out of university may not know. And it can be a slippery slope, because there are some reporters out there just putting their heads down and writing about the league and doing good things to promote the league. And then there's other people that aren't necessarily legit reporters that will poke around, and you may never know as a player. So to have that training, it's really good to kind of keep it in the back of your mind and be able to pick out when you should take the time and talk to someone. But we have staff for all of that as well. If you get pulled for an interview, the staff knows first, obviously, and they have to grab you. No one's knocking on the locker room door trying to find a certain player. But in regards to personal brand, it's a bit difficult. I mean, as someone in university and high school, I didn't have a huge social media presence, but I'm working on that now. I'm getting all my accounts out there and started a TikTok. That's super cool to interact with the fans specifically of this league. So, doing anything I can to kind of build my brand, interact with the fans over social media. That's what keeps people coming back. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's so working with my agency to kind of transition my accounts into getting more content out there. People love to see content, which I'm not used to providing. I'm used to just kind of posting my one or two posts every year on Instagram or something like that. And but it is really key to continue to interact with the fans and the way that they respond to even just like a story on Instagram. Like, it's so cool the way that they interact with all of it. And it makes me want to continue posting more. So it can be super vulnerable, I think, to build your brand and to do all of that. But it's necessary, and if you do it the right way, it's fun. So I'm working on it. That's my answer to that. I'm getting there.
No, that's great. And it just, as we follow amateur and professional athletes with things like name, image, and likeness, and a lot of the WNBA players are now, building their own sponsorship brands and launching their own YouTube channels. It's just interesting how, in the old days, it was perform on the field and that's it, right?
Yep.
Now it's everyone is their own kind of brand and own like almost mini corporation.
Yeah, you see it in some other leagues, you see some athletes making more money. They don't even need the contract almost. They make more money via sponsorships and all of that stuff. So, I mean, good on those people. It can be another source of income and all of that, but also it's a great way to keep the fans engaged with the league, with individual players, and it helps grow most leagues. You know what I mean? It's not just our league, it's not just the WNBA, but even male leagues too, male professional leagues. It's always, the fans enjoy when players interact with them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So and expect it now.
It's
know, so much. Yeah, I mean, thinking aloud on what you're saying, it's responsible to yourself, right? To open, I mean, get out there, put out content, build that brand. It could open up some opportunities should you want to pursue them down the road. But yeah, it is really, I mean, it's responsible to the league and the game that you've devoted your life to this game and car racing, which we're going to come to in a moment. But you've devoted so much to hockey. I mean, this is something more you can do now at this point, right? Like, reach out, connect with those fans.
Yeah. I think it's really great that I can still continue to do what I love, and I still meet new people, and to have the platform to be a role model for young kids and even adults. It's, like I said, it's not something that I think I'll ever get used to, but it's also not something that I take for granted. It's such an honor, and that's part of what being a professional is. It's, you don't just go and play hockey. It's continue to grow the game, leave it better than you found it, and just continue to inspire others whenever you can.
Have you done much coaching?
I'm just kind of getting into it. While I'm still playing, I think I'm going to stick to more like mentorship side of it. But obviously when I'm done, I want to get into the coaching and stay in the game in some aspect.
Is there anything you can, I mean, maybe mentoring players as you're able is the answer to this, but are there things you can do now in the position you're in to position yourself for coaching or maybe other types of front office jobs, GM scouting, things like that? Player development. Yeah,
I always say connections are so valuable in the hockey world, in the world in general, in corporate business and anything, but specifically in hockey. So I was actually working for the academy at the Harbor Center this summer, just as like a skills coach, making some connections down there with the academy and the Sabres, which was really great. So just building connections wherever I can, and whether I stay in hockey in Buffalo or I stay in Minnesota, it's kind of unclear. I'm kind of just going year by year at this point, but the more connections I make, I think it'll be a smoother transition whenever I do want to stop to kind of get into that coaching or mentorship or whatever path I choose. It's kind of, just making those connections and making sure that I guess, keep them for I can't think of the word, but making sure I keep up with making new connections and also making sure I stay in touch with my old ones. Yeah, no, I mean, your fellow athletes and the PWHL people I've interviewed have all talked about that. They often, without being prompted, they bring up coaching, especially if they're several years into their professional career. That does seem to be what they're spending their off season doing is training for the next season.
and taking time to work with younger players, young girls and boys too.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to throw that out there for people. I mean, these are professional hockey players who are coaching young hockey players.
Yeah.
And it's, it's cool to hear the passion they have for it.
Yeah.
And, and we've had the sense, I mean, John and I have talked about this, and John, this is something you've lived more than me. There's a need for more great hockey coaches for youth out there too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would, Katie would, power skating coaches. I mean, that's where, it's my first skating instructor was a female power skater. And it was, didn't matter who the gender was of the coach. There was skill. And so, yeah, we need more coaches. We need more mentors in the sport. And I think that kind of leads me to a thing something I want to talk to you about was you see, you have a lot of teammates, right, from all over the world on the roster. How is this region doing with women's hockey? How are we stacking up as far as players, rinks, meaning we have female locker rooms as well? How do you think we're stacking up? You're a great case study. We you're an example of what we can do.
Yeah.
But how does this region stack up with other areas of the country or the globe, for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, throughout the country, and at least in the PWHL, there is I don't want to say a lot, but there are some other Buffalo, New York products in the league. You have Haley Skamura. I'm really close with Haley. She's doing great. She's playing for Montreal now. Brooke Becker just got drafted to Minnesota, so I'll have a friendly face in Minnesota for camp.
Great.
Natalie Bookbinder's also in Minnesota, so she's from Rochester. So Western New York product as well. But in terms of just the area, it's really great, I think, to see the Junior Sabres girls program pop up. Super, super thrilled to kind of see what's going on down there and how they're building that program. And they're super committed to building an elite program that gives girls the chance to play locally and also prep them for college and help them get recruited out of Buffalo. I ended up going to play junior hockey up in Toronto my last 2 years of high school. I stayed local. My parents are Saints. They commuted up to Toronto 4 to 5 times a week for 2 years, so can't thank them enough. But I wish Junior Sabres had a program around when I was still playing. And there were options here, but I had to do what I thought was best for me and try to play at the highest level possible that was within reach. And my parents were like, we'll drive. So to see that program popping up, I think they have 3-4 teams now, and I'm actually helping mentor some of the teams down there, and specifically their 16U team. They're looking really good this year so far, so I'm excited to see how they do. But at least until I leave, I'll be helping out with them down there and to make the connections. Like I said, it's all about connections. Yeah. I met Pat Coletta this summer, and working with him, he's a big part of that girls program popping up, as well as Nicole Brown. She's the director of the girls teams out down there. So super thrilled that that's finally popping up, as well as I know a bunch of other organizations. I've met a lot of girls who play for Amherst this summer throughout my coaching stuff. And there's a bunch of other organizations. But in terms of tier 1 and just high level opportunities for girls around here, really happy to see that the Junior Sabres are.
It's starting to really grow. So
yes,
that's
I
great.
think it's definitely headed in the right direction compared to when I was playing.
So if you were 15 years old, like a 15-year-old sophomore now, or let's say a 16-year-old junior now, you may or may not still be going to Toronto, but you would have more options to look at here.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's good. That's great to know. That's
good.
Great to know. Before we let you go, I have to ask you about the car racing. For the benefit of people listening out there and watching, Katy mentioned before we started recording today, you have quite the history, family history, right?
Yeah.
In car racing. And I did see a WKBW story about this. So, fill us in on that.
Yeah, so I used to race cars. I used to race dirt cars, if anyone is familiar. I used to race micro sprint cars. They have the big wing on top. You can race them without the wing, but I always describe them as the one with the big wing on top, and they drift and you get to turn right and all that cool stuff. So raced those for 5 or 6 years. I started out in go-karts. My dad got me and my siblings into go-karts out at Ransomville Speedway, did all of that. And kind of as I moved up, I got into micro sprints. But my grandfather and my dad really laid the groundwork for us racing. They raced asphalt modifieds. I think mostly my dad I don't know if my grandfather did, but my dad also races late models, super late models, all of that stuff. So locally, it was mostly Holland Speedway, if you guys know, and then Lancaster. They traveled a lot too. My dad and grandfather, my dad always tells me stories about when they used to travel up even to like Eastern Canada for a race. It's really cool to hear those stories. And it was a way for my grandfather and my dad to bond, and then it became a way for my dad to bond with all of us siblings. So really loved my time racing. Who knows if I'll get back into it in some capacity or not. You never know. It's a really cool hobby to have. I always call that a hobby, but in my family, we don't have hobbies. Everything is, we go 100% all the time, and it's not a full-time job, but in the end, it was a fun summer hobby for me to have. And right around 16 years old, I made the decision to focus full-time on hockey. The summers, when you get to that age, the summers fill up with hockey even. You have an off season, but you have USA camps, you have district camps, all of that stuff. So it got to the point where I was having to make choices between hockey and racing. And I actually got injured once racing, and I broke my thumb. And thankfully, I didn't have to miss a camp. But looking back on it, I was like, wow, if I would have had to miss a USA hockey camp or even a district camp, that wouldn't have been good. And then I made the decision to kind of put racing on the back burner for a little bit, focus on hockey. And at the time, it was the right decision for sure. And I was able to stay in racing, thankfully. I was helping out with my dad's crew. He got back into asphalt racing once all of the kids kind of put racing to the side and moved on a little bit. It was really fun to be able to stay on my dad's crew and help him. I would help him with tires or sometimes be a spotter depending on where we went. So I got to still travel and be a part of racing and still get that feel of being at the track. But I wasn't the one racing, which my dad and I always say it's not as fun when you're not the one racing. It's always fun to go to the track, see people. It's a really small community, tight knit for sure. But it's always more fun when you're the one racing.
I would imagine. But that is so cool. I want to ask, like, did racing all about quick reactions, hockey all about quick reactions?
Yeah.
Those skills transfer at all?
I think so. I actually got asked this question a couple weeks back, and I had to think about it. And I was like, I think so. Even though they're two really different sports, it is the reaction time, I think, translates really well. And one's obviously an individual sport, one is a team sport. But I think in a way, racing can also be a team sport. If you can't do everything yourself, I think it's impossible to go to the track without a crew. Some people try to do it, but I think in a way it is a team sport, and you need to kind of be on the same page with your crew and all of that. But when you're in the car and you have to make those split-second decisions, I do think it translates really well to kind of moving and grooving on the ice and making those quick decisions. So I think it did nothing but help me just be a better athlete, be a better hockey player. And it was something great I got to do with my family growing up.
Super cool. Super cool.
Yeah. Well, listen, Katy, thank you so much for talking hockey, for talking racing. Congratulations on an incredible rookie season with the Minnesota Frost, and go get them this year. I know you're back in Minnesota in a couple of months, right?
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course.
Best of luck this season, and we're going to take you up on the offer to visit in either Toronto or Minneapolis. So we'll see you there.
Let me know.
We'll be there. And thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for our final wrap-up segment here on Skin in the Game.
What if your spare change could help protect the public media you love? When you link your Visa or MasterCard at btpm.roundforgood.com, your everyday purchases are rounded up to the nearest dollar. At the end of the month, that change becomes one simple donation to Buffalo Toronto Public Media, fueling public media and strengthening our community. One cup of coffee, one grocery run, one roundup at a time. You're in control. Pause or cancel anytime. It's simple. It adds up. Small change, big impact.
Listen to Buffalo Toronto Public Media The Bridge wherever you are. Search for the BTPM Listen app on all your devices.
Hey, welcome back to Skin in the Game. And Tim, I wanted to thank you for contacting Katy and bringing her in studio. What an impressive young woman.
Yeah, you got it. And I'm so glad to get an athlete's perspective on, John, so many of the issues we talk about on this program.
Right. No, it was so many times where, we're speaking to kind of the business side, whether it's the front office of an organization or a league. But it's great to get a perspective of someone who's actually, in this case, on the ice, and really insightful onto, how bullish she is on the league, as well as kind of reinforcing how bullish we are on the league. So great to get her in studio, and really happy for her. And I thought was really interesting, Tim, was kind of the timing, right? They always said, luck is, good timing, with hard work, right? And it seems like in the case of Katy's, evolution of her career, the timing of her graduating from Northeastern with the formation of this new and looks to be a strong league was just perfect.
Oh, it worked out so well for Katy. And, something else interesting, John, on the timing is during the season last year with the Minnesota Frost, she didn't stand out. And Katy would be the first person to say that. The playoffs come around, 8 games, 5 points, 3 of them assists, 2 of them goals. One of those goals, a triple overtime winner. So Katy, who was operating on a 1-year rookie contract last year, she got offered a second contract. And
right.
So she's going back to Minnesota this year on a 1-year contract. And, when she told us, I'm taking this career year by year, that is actually in the literal sense right now. But you really get the sense this is somebody who's going to build a great career in sports. And yeah. I appreciate how business-like she is in her thinking about this too, right? Like the building a brand is something that can, it can open opportunities for her.
She wasn't originally comfortable with that,
right? Which is a hallmark of hockey players.
Understands the importance of building her brand and
doing it for the league too,
right.
and for the fans of this league.
Right. So we talked a lot about kind of where the league is, but we also talked about where this region is with women's hockey. And it does sound, Tim, that in the last 4 or 5 years, we've made some really great strides in increasing the opportunities for women to continue to grow the sport and, better yet, continue to stay here, to enhance their careers. So we are taking some positive steps right now.
Yeah, that Junior Sabres program that Katy was describing, and
right.
You and I we'll get more people in this studio to talk about that. That's a big part of it. In terms of building a career in hockey that can extend beyond one's playing days, more coaching opportunities for hockey players on a whole, but women who have played pro hockey, giving them the chance to continue. Something we touched on with Katy, but I think is a very, very big deal. And this comes up in all of my coverage for us, for the Buffalo News of the PWHL, and talking to the players. We have to be very careful too, not to, and we meaning not you and I, but all of us need to be careful too, to look at it as these are pro hockey players who can become pro hockey coaches, whether they played in the PWHL, the ECHL, the AHL, the NHL. There are great hockey players who can go train young men and women who are playing this game.
Absolutely.
We've got to, we can't look at it as 2 separate sports. I find, not in this conversation, but just in general, people sometimes still slip into that. This is hockey. Period.
Right. Well, in the case of Katy too, it's also checking hockey. So
yeah. No, that was when I asked her that question, and that's one that a friend had kind of clued me in on, that it really does change the scope of the game when you can't get too physical. So between Katy's natural tendencies as an athlete, which is I'm going to get as physical as they're going to allow me to. And then in the PWHL, there is the opportunity to hit a little harder, to test the. She was talking about, that how much give there are in the boards in the different cities.
Sure.
When you're going to be using those, it does change the scope of the game.
Yeah, but I would say, you and I and a lot of our listeners have watched, Olympic hockey, USA versus Canada, and trust me, that's a very, very physical game. Checking or not, it's a physical game. And I just think with the Professional Women's Hockey League, maybe you can drop that shoulder a little bit more. But the women's hockey I've seen it's a very physical and very obviously demanding sport.
Incredibly so.
Yeah.
Incredibly.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the we've had here on Skin in the Game. We've had We've talked a lot about WNBA and where it is as a league. We've talked now about Professional Women's Hockey League, where it is as a league. We also have the Women's Softball League, Athletes Unlimited, that's, out there. Flag football, Tim, obviously, that you talked about.
Pro soccer.
Pro soccer, absolutely. So where do we think, where do we think each of these individual leagues are, and kind of, I don't want to rank them, but kind of where stability and player salaries and growth, kind of what's the landscape? What are you seeing? What are you hearing out there?
Well, you can fact check me on this, but if you look at franchise values, the WNBA and women's professional soccer, so in basketball and soccer, right? Those seem to be, if you were, we'll put it this way, if you were a billionaire who wanted to go buy a pro sports team, you could do quite well buying teams in those two leagues.
Yeah, and I think a big number was with the Angel City women's professional soccer team in Los Angeles, some record numbers. And then if you look at their team, I mean the value of their team increased exponentially in a very tight amount of time. And then most recently, very successful year in San Francisco,
right?
With their team, Toronto on the horizon. Then most recently, Cleveland as well,
and a huge fan base.
Yeah.
Huge
I think you're right on those, and I think a big part of that are the TV deals that those leagues have received, and then I think, as you alluded to with Katy, is you're starting to see a lot of the national brands. So I would probably rank WNBA right now is at the top, followed very, very closely with Women's Professional Soccer League, and then kind of leagues to watch out for is Professional Women's Hockey League, and then I'd love to see this barnstorming Women's Softball League kind of look for more of a franchise model and find some home markets.
Yeah, and that league, they're months into it right now, and we have reached out to them to get the commissioner or somebody high up in the league onto the program, and there seems to be a willingness. So hopefully, we're having this this conversation direct with the source. Now I'm going to flip this as I think about what young athletes are playing. And, if you have, let's say, a 15-year-old daughter, a 15-year-old young woman who is dedicating herself to a sport and wants to aspire to play it beyond college and perhaps at a high level, but outside the Olympics, or not just the Olympics, right? Not something that only happens every 4 years. Basketball, you've got something you can look to. Soccer, you've got something you can look to. Hockey, that's our conversation with Katy. That seems to be on an upward trajectory. Right. Softball, finally, the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. You've got something you're looking at there. And then flag football, the NFL's behind that. My gut is, we'll see a pro flag football league, maybe after the Olympics, since the Olympics are in 2028. But flag football, I think, as long as the NFL cares, flag football is going to be in a good place.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And it, I think it all comes down to is, but Tim, what I don't want us to be doing is, push your kids into this sport because there's so many opportunities.
No. There's opportunity to aspire to. That does not mean there are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and in the case of Katy, it came down to, she had older siblings that played the game. She probably put on some pads or put on some skates at the age of 2 and found the passion. It doesn't seem that there was any forced path for her. As a matter of fact,
her dad is sad that she's not racing cars.
Exactly.
Right now.
I think the forced path.
Her parents are incredible. I don't know her parents, but we've talked with Katy about them. Right. Her parents, as they should be, are enormously proud of Katy and her accomplishments. But there's nowhere in that conversation was there any indication that there was, that 12 or 13 or 14-year-old Katy was being told, hey, if you can get this good and if you can go play this in college, you could go pro one day.
Yeah.
It worked out that way, and good for her.
Good for her. And, it sounds like she's following her passion, had great support from her siblings, from her parents.
Great coaching.
Even though they may have wished she were still racing cars, I think she's following her passion. And great conversation. It was just great to get someone who is actually, on the ice or, on the floor, get their perspective. And, very bullish as we talked about where that league is. And hopefully, Katy and her teammates maybe visit Western New York and we can see them perform here at a rink nearby. And again, inspire that next generation of hockey talent.
That we'll be on, well, if it's not in Buffalo, we'll be on a plane, to Minnesota?
Minnesota is as great of a hockey town as Toronto and Buffalo. Great grassroots program. So that would be a nice skin in the game road trip.
Yeah.
And hey, again, Tim, thanks for bringing Katy in on the program, and thanks for all of you for listening to Skin in the Game, and look forward to catching up over the next few weeks.